Miyamoto Musashi wrote the Book of Five Rings in 1645 when he was 62 years old. He composed it from a cave in Kumamoto that is still standing to this day. In the section dedicated to strategy, he described two distinct types of gazes. Kan is the perceiving gaze that holds the entire field in view. Ken is the looking gaze that narrows down onto a single point. He trained both of these gazes every single day for 40 years, and at age 62, he wrote that his vision was actually sharper than it had been when he was 30. Meanwhile, by the age of 62, most Western men are already on their fourth prescription update. They deal with reading glasses that didn't even exist 10 years ago, and parking signs that suddenly blurred without warning one evening during the drive home. The neck begins to angle forward just enough to bring the phone into focus. Something happened, and it happened slowly. Yet nobody told you that it could be trained. A 2020 Journal of Optometry meta-analysis reviewed 47 different studies and 3,411 adults over the age of 50. Targeted visual training produced a 22% gain in accommodation amplitude, an 18% gain in convergence, and a 31% faster peripheral response time. This isn't a new number. It is simply a number that nobody was telling you. There is a man in Kumamoto, Japan, whose name is legendary because he never lost a single duel. He had 61 recorded duels, with the last one occurring at the age of 50. After that final duel, he retired to a cave and spent 12 more years training his mind, his gaze, and his attention. At 62, he wrote down exactly what he had learned. The visual training is right there in the text, not as a metaphor, but as a drill. Hold your index finger 6 inches from your nose right now. Focus on the fingernail until the ridges become sharp. Now snap your focus to something 20 feet away, a doorway, a tree, or a light switch on the far wall. Go back to the finger. Again, alternate 5 times. Notice the lag. There is a half-second blur between targets as your lens reshapes itself. That specific lag is exactly what Musashi trained out. Drill number 3 is the one that 90% of Western men skip because it feels far too simple. It is the one a Kenjutsu swordsman would practice every morning before ever picking up a blade. Stay for it, because it is the one that changes how the brain processes everything you see. Here is what is happening inside your eye. The ciliary muscle is a small ring of smooth muscle inside the eye that reshapes your lens. When you look at something close, it contracts, the lens thickens, and the image focuses. When you look at something far away, it relaxes, the lens flattens, and the image focuses at a distance. This muscle performed this action thousands of times a day for your first 40 years without you ever noticing. After 50, if you spend most of your day looking at screens at one fixed distance, a phone, a laptop, or a dashboard, the ciliary muscle stops cycling through its full range. The lens slowly locks at a mid-distance. You call it presbyopia. Optometry calls it presbyopia. It looks structural, but it isn't entirely. A significant portion of it is the ciliary muscle atrophying from underuse. Your eyes aren't failing, they simply stopped being asked to work. The ciliary muscle, the peripheral processing, and the saccade speed are all 3 trainable systems that quietly went idle. Think of your eye as a camera with a programmable lens. The lens itself, the glass, does age and stiffen. That part is structural. But the motor that moves the lens, the focus ring, and the autofocus system are all trainable. The camera body still has 30 years of function left in it if you ever touch the focus ring. Western optometry sells you a new camera with a fixed lens, progressive lenses, reading glasses, or LASIK for distance correction. None of them train the focus ring. They substitute for it. There is nothing wrong with the substitution if you understand what it is. Progressive lenses compensate for reduced ciliary flexibility the same way a walking cane compensates for a weak hip. The cane is useful, but nobody is suggesting the cane replaces the work of rebuilding the hip. In optometry, the equivalent of rebuilding the hip has existed in the research literature for decades. It just never made it to the standard appointment because it requires patient time and daily practice rather than a lab order and a new frame. The substitution works, but nobody is telling you that the focus ring is still functional underneath that substitution, and that training it changes what you see on a Tuesday morning before you've even put your glasses on. Musashi wrote from Reigando Cave in Kumamoto at 62. The cave is still there. Visitors say the acoustics make whispered words audible across the chamber. Musashi's sensory training was environmental, not just ocular. He was practicing attention. His drills are in the book. We have the text. What we don't have is a reason not to run them. There is a pattern in the optometry research that doesn't get discussed outside of clinical settings. Adults over 50 who do sustained near work, such as reading physical books, working with their hands, or spending time outdoors at variable distances, show significantly slower functional presbyopia progression than matched adults whose visual environment is screen-fixed. The difference isn't the near work itself, it is the range cycling. Eyes that move through their full focal range daily preserve the ciliary muscle's flexibility longer. Eyes that sit at one fixed distance all day do not. This is the environmental version of what Musashi was doing deliberately. He just systematized it. A quick ask before drill 1, drop your current prescription age in the comments. When did you first need reading glasses? I am tracking which drills help which starting points, and I read everyone. Here are the 5 drills. Drill 1, near-far focus or ken-ken cycling. Before a duel, a swordsman would practice switching his gaze between his blade tip 6 inches from his face and the distant landscape behind his opponent. Ken and ken, the 2 gazes Musashi named. After 50, most Western men's lenses lock around 1 meter. Reading gets harder, and distance signs blur on the drive home. The Journal of Optometry 2020 meta-analysis of 3,411 adults over 50 documented a 22% recovery of accommodative amplitude with targeted near-far training over 8 to 12 weeks. That is roughly 5 years of functional presbyopia reversed. Not the refractive error, but the flexibility. Hold your thumb 6 inches from your nose. Focus on the skin texture until it is sharp. Then shift your focus to something 20 feet away. Let your eyes settle until the distant object is sharp. Don't strain, just wait. Back to the thumb. Hold for 1 full second at each target. Do 20 alternations, which is about 45 seconds total. You should feel a mild muscular sensation behind the eyes after round 1. That is the ciliary muscle actually working. If you feel a headache, you are straining. Soften the focus and give each target 2 seconds instead of 1. No glasses during the drill, or use distance glasses only. Reading glasses defeat the purpose entirely. Week 1, 20 alternations daily. Week 2, 30. Week 3, add a third distance, near, middle at 6 feet, and far at 20. Week 4, 40 alternations across all 3 distances at a faster pace of half a second per target. The 3-distance version is worth understanding before you get there. Near-far cycling trains the 2 endpoints of the ciliary range. The middle distance trains the range itself, the smooth continuum between close and far that the ciliary muscle has to navigate when your grandson runs toward you from across the room or when you look up from a menu to talk to the waiter. Adding a middle target recruits the full arc of the muscle's motion, not just the 2 extremes. This is why the week 3 progression produces noticeably faster results than week 1 and 2 alone. What most men notice by week 3 isn't dramatic. It is the moment they look up from their phone and the room resolves a half-second faster than it did a month ago. The bedroom ceiling when they wake up, the kitchen clock from across the room, small things. These are the ciliary muscle returning to range. The lens isn't younger, the muscle operating it is more responsive. That difference is the gap between a camera with a stiff focus ring and one that turns cleanly. If you have cataracts or macular degeneration, run the drill, but treat it as gentle gaze movement. The adaptation is slower but present. Skip if there is a recent retinal detachment. Drill 2, peripheral zanshin. Zanshin means remaining mind. It is the state of expanded awareness a swordsman held before, during, and after an engagement. The peripheral field was primary, the center was secondary. A samurai who narrowed on one point in a multi-opponent situation was already dead. The periphery was survival. Modern life narrows visual attention to screens. The useful field of view, the functional periphery, not the anatomical periphery, shrinks 25% between ages 30 and 60 in sedentary adults, according to Owsley and Investigative Ophthalmology, 2016. That shrinking is the single strongest predictor of crash risk in drivers over 65. It is stronger than acuity and stronger than 20/20 readings on a chart. This distinction matters. You can pass a vision test at 20/20 and still have a useful field of view that has collapsed into a narrow cone. The chart measures resolution at the center. It doesn't measure how much of the surrounding world your brain is processing. A man with excellent central acuity and a collapsed periphery can read the stop sign perfectly and still miss the car entering his lane from the right. The same research found that 8-week peripheral training reduced crash risk by 40% in that population. Sit facing a wall 8 feet away. Fix your gaze on a point at eye level, a mark, a piece of tape, anything. Don't move your eyes. Now, without moving the eyes at all, expand your awareness to include the periphery. Notice the edges of the wall, the ceiling, the floor, and whatever objects are on either side. You are looking at the center, but you are aware of everything else. Hold for 30 seconds, then blink, reset, and do it again. The sensation is subtle. It isn't strain, it is a quiet widening, like opening a window you didn't realize was closed. If your eyes drift from the center, restart. The drill is the staying. Every time the eyes drift and you catch them, that catching is itself a training event. The peripheral awareness neural pathway gets a signal each time you detect the drift. Catching the drift is not failure, it is the drill working. Week 1, 3 rounds of 30 seconds. Week 2, 4 rounds of 45. Week 3, 5 rounds of 60. Add object identification, what is on the far left without looking. Week 4, 5 rounds of 60 with full useful field of view training. One more thing about drill 2. The peripheral awareness that returns by day 10 or 12 has a particular quality that is hard to describe until you've experienced it. It feels less like seeing more and more, like worrying less about what is on the edges. The vigilance that drove your eyes to the corners of the room, checking for motion or scanning for hazards, relaxes, not because the periphery is less active, but because it is being handled. The peripheral processing pathway, once reactivated, starts doing its job below the threshold of conscious attention, the same way a well-trained soldier watches the perimeter without announcing it. For low vision conditions, use a closer wall, about 4 feet, and adjust object expectations. The widening is the mechanism, not the acuity. A quick pause before drill 3. You might be wondering where to get this organized into a complete system with the progression, the tracker, and the additional drills. The Western Monk Protocol is a 124-page PDF that builds vision training into a full 12-week program. It covers 3 additional drills the video doesn't, including the Kenjutsu Focal Shift Protocol and a contrast sensitivity drill, plus a printable daily tracker, a peripheral field self-test, and an optometrist discussion guide for your next appointment. If you're watching on your TV right now, scan the QR code on screen for the full protocol in 60 seconds. On your phone or computer, the link is in the description. Now drill 3, saccade tracking. This is the one. A saccade is the quick jump your eyes make from one point to another. A swordsman tracking a blade made thousands of saccades per engagement. Samurai train them daily. In the modern world, they are untrained. Untrained saccade latency in men over 60 is 280 to 320 milliseconds. Trained, it is 180 to 210. That is a 40% speed gap. It affects reading, driving, catching things you drop, and tracking a grandchild across a playground. According to Spearing and Vision Research 2019, targeted saccade training reduced latency from 300 plus milliseconds to 210 in adults over 60. Reading speed increased 35% as a side effect. The reading speed finding is worth pausing on. Men who did the saccade drills weren't trying to read faster. They were training their eyes to move faster. The reading improvement was a byproduct. The extraocular muscles got faster, and the brain's word grouping algorithm, which depends on fast, accurate eye jumps, got more material to work with per second. Hold your 2 thumbs up in front of you, one at arm's length on the left, one at arm's length on the right. Eye level about 3 feet apart. Look at the left thumb. Without moving your head, snap your gaze to the right thumb. Pause a half second. Snap back. Alternate 20 times. The head does not move, only the eyes. Move them sharply, not smoothly. Every jump is a saccade. Now do the same drill vertically. One thumb up, one thumb down. Snap between them. Then diagonal, upper left to lower right, and lower left to upper right. You should feel a muscular sensation in the small muscles around the eyes, a mild warmth. Those are the extraocular muscles, 6 per eye, and you haven't trained them in decades. Week 1, 20 horizontal and 20 vertical. Week 2, add 20 diagonal each way. Week 3, increase pace to about 1/3 of a second between targets. Week 4, add focal sharpening. Make sure each thumb is in sharp focus before moving to the next. For recent concussions or vestibular disorders, reduce pace and volume by half. Saccade training is therapeutic for these conditions but must be staged. Consult a physical therapist. Drill 4, the palm press, the darkness reset. The samurai trained in low light and high light conditions. Palming, cupping the hands over closed eyes in full darkness, was used between drills to reset the retinal photoreceptors and calm the oculomotor system. After 50, the retina's ability to recover from light stress declines. Photoreceptor saturation from screens compounds daily. The system never fully resets. An accumulated strain presents as eye fatigue by 2 hours in the afternoon. Most men over 50 interpret that fatigue as a need for more coffee or a consequence of poor sleep. It is sometimes those things, but it is always also the retina running on depleted photoreceptor reserves that were never reset between the morning and afternoon visual loads. According to Ocular Surface 2019, deliberate darkness exposure for 60 to 90 seconds between visual tasks restores retinal sensitivity and reduces accumulated eye strain by 40% in screen users over 50. Close your eyes. Rub your palms together vigorously for 10 seconds until they're warm. Cup the warm palms over your closed eyes. Heel of the hand on the cheekbone, fingers on the forehead. No pressure on the eyeball itself, just warmth and complete darkness. Breathe slowly, 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. You should see a deep, uniform darkness after about 30 seconds. If you still see color fragments or after images, stay longer. The color fragments are the photoreceptors finishing their discharge cycle. When they clear and the field goes uniform dark, the reset is complete. Hold for 60 to 90 seconds. Lower the hands. Open the eyes slowly into a dim room if possible. Blink 3 times. The visual field should feel cleaner and colors slightly more saturated. That is the retinal reset. If you do this drill in week 2 between saccade training and peripheral zanshin, you'll notice the zanshin drill afterward feels qualitatively different. The peripheral widening comes faster and holds longer. A rested retina processes peripheral information more efficiently than a saturated one. Week 1, 1 round of 60 seconds between the other drills. Week 2, 2 rounds in the day, mid-morning and mid-afternoon. Week 3, add a round before bed. Week 4, maintain. For photosensitive conditions, palming is safe, but open your eyes into the darkest room available. Avoid direct re-exposure to screens or sunlight within 30 seconds of palming. Drill 5, the conscious full blink. Kenjutsu swordsmen practice specific blink timing as part of mental composure. A full closure and reopen between techniques. The blink was not involuntary, it was deliberate. Modern screen users blink incompletely 70% of the time. The upper lid doesn't fully meet the lower. The tear film doesn't fully distribute. Dry eye increases 2.3-fold. Meibomian glands, which produce the oily layer of tears, become dysfunctional. According to Ocular Surface 2019, conscious full blink drills, 3 rounds of 20 blinks per day, restored meibomian gland function in 6 to 8 weeks in adults over 50 with chronic dry eye. Sit upright, relax the face. Close your eyes slowly. Feel the upper lid travel all the way to meet the lower. Hold the closure for half a second, then open slowly. That is 1 complete blink. Do 20 in a row. Slow, deliberate, and full, not the micro flutter most of us do all day. You should feel a subtle wetness spread across the eye surface with each full blink. That is the tear film redistributing. If your eyes feel scratchy by 3 hours in the afternoon most days, This drill is the single most effective fix for that specific problem. Not eye drops, not omega-3 supplements, though those help, the blink. The complete blink that the screen environment has been training out of you for 10 years. 3 rounds per day, morning, mid-afternoon, and evening. It takes about 30 seconds per round, 90 seconds total daily. The meibomian gland result in the study came from this volume. Not more, not less. 6 weeks at 90 seconds a day. If you've been told your dry eye is just a consequence of age, that's only half the story. Incomplete blinking is the other half, and it's correctable in 6 weeks. Before the summary, one thing worth stating plainly. These 5 drills do not require believing that Musashi's vision was actually sharper at 62 than at 30. That claim may be true, or it may be the kind of thing a man writes from a cave at the end of his life to make a point. It doesn't matter. The meta-analysis of 3,411 people is not from a cave. It is from peer-reviewed optometry research published in 2020. The 40% crash risk reduction is from Owsley at the University of Alabama, Birmingham, 2016. The saccade latency data is from Spearing, 2019. The meibomian gland recovery is from GIA, also 2019. Musashi provides the frame, the science provides the confirmation. You need both, or you don't need either. Here is the daily system. Morning, drill 1, 20 near-far alternations. Drill 2, 3 rounds of 30 seconds Zanshin. Drill 3, 20 horizontal and 20 vertical saccades. Drill 4, 1 palm press of 60 seconds. Drill 5, 20 conscious blinks. Total time, 10 minutes. Mid-afternoon, drill 5, 20 blinks. Drill 4, 60-second palm press. Evening, drill 5, 20 blinks. Drill 4, 60-second palm press before bed. That is the whole protocol. 10 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes mid-afternoon, 2 minutes before bed. Progressive lenses over 20 years from age 60 to 80 run at least $4,000 in prescription updates. This runs zero. Plus, you may still need glasses if you have refractive error, but the functional vision systems get trained on top of whatever prescription you wear. One is compensation, the other is restoration. They are not the same. There is a specific kind of conversation that happens in the waiting room at an optometry office. 2 men in their 60s comparing prescriptions the way men used to compare mileage on their cars. Mine went up again. Mine too. Every 2 years like clockwork. What are you going to do? That conversation treats the progression as weather, something that happens to you that you observe and accommodate and eventually stop fighting. This protocol is the argument that the conversation is wrong. Not all of it. The structural component of presbyopia is real and progressive. But the functional component, the ciliary flexibility, the saccade speed, the peripheral processing, is not weather. It is a trainable system that went untrained, and it responds to 10 minutes a day the same way a hip responds to physical therapy. You don't need to practice swordsmanship. You need 10 minutes of gaze training done in order every morning. Musashi didn't have anything you don't. He just had the discipline to show up. 3 problems come up in the first 2 weeks. Problem 1. Drill 1 causes eye strain or a headache. You're focusing too hard. Give each target 2 seconds instead of 1. Let the sharpness arrive. Don't pull it in. The ciliary muscle responds to patience, not effort. The harder you try to force focus, the more the surrounding muscles tighten and interfere. Soften the eyes and the sharpness comes on its own. Problem 2. Drill 2 feels like nothing happens. Expect it in week 1. Zanshin is subtle. Run the drill anyway for 14 days. Around day 10 or 12, the peripheral awareness clicks like a sense turning on. Trust the timeline. The peripheral pathway in the brain is slower to train than the ciliary muscle. It requires repeated signals before the brain reallocates processing resources to it. Day 12 is when most men report the click. Some report it at day 8, almost none report it before day 7. Problem 3, drill 3 makes eyes feel exhausted after 3 days. The extraocular muscles haven't worked in decades. Soreness is expected. Reduce volume by 50% for week 1 and ramp back up in week 2. The fatigue fades by week 3, and then the latency drops. The fatigue and the latency drop are sequential. The soreness is the adaptation cost, and the speed gain is the return. You don't get one without the other. A fourth issue that comes up around week 2. You do the morning protocol, your vision feels noticeably clearer for a few hours, and then you skip the next morning because you feel like you fixed it. You haven't fixed it. You've received a session of signal. The ciliary muscle, the saccade system, and the peripheral pathway are all like any other physical system under training. One good session produces a temporary effect. 40 consecutive sessions produce a structural one. The clear morning after a good drill session is not the finish line. It is what the finish line will feel like permanently once the 40 sessions have been logged. Don't confuse the preview with the result. Musashi wrote the Book of 5 Rings at 62. He said his vision was sharper than at 30. We have the cave, we have the manuscript, and we have the drills he described. What we don't have is an excuse. Your eyes haven't failed. 2 gazes went idle, and a third system, saccade speed, never got asked. They're all trainable. That's what the 3,401 people in the meta-analysis confirmed. 22%, 18%, 31%. Numbers that move when the system moves. Something happens around day 20 that nobody mentions in the research papers because it's qualitative. Men who've been doing the 5 drills consistently report a change in how they move through public spaces. Wider, less compressed. The peripheral awareness that was narrowing for a decade starts opening back up, and the body follows it. A wider visual field produces a different posture, slightly more upright, slightly less hunched toward the thing being looked at. The neck that was angling forward to bring the phone into focus starts finding a neutral position more naturally because the focus comes easier and the urgency of craning disappears. Vision training is not posture training, but the posture changes anyway. Test yourself in 30 days. The near-far alternation will feel faster. The peripheral awareness will hold longer. The saccade warmth will become familiar. These are the observables. They're what a good optometrist measures and rarely trains. Tonight, drill 5. 20 conscious blinks, 1 round before you sleep. That's the whole first lesson. Tomorrow morning, add a drill 1. 20 near-far alternations before you look at a screen. Under 90 seconds of training, by day 7, do all 5 in sequence. One warning, if any drill produces sharp pain, flashing lights in the vision, a sudden dark spot, or a sense of pressure inside the eye, stop and see an ophthalmologist the same day. These are signs of something structural, not functional. The drills do not cause them, but they may reveal an underlying condition that was already there. Subscribe if you want the other 3 drills Musashi described, including the focal shift and contrast sensitivity protocols. The next video covers them. Tell me in the comments which drill gave you the clearest change. Most men reported it's drill number 3. I am curious if yours is the same. One last note for men who are further along in the progression: bifocals for years, progressive lenses for a decade, or who've had LASIK and are now experiencing age-related changes on top of the correction. The drills are still relevant. LASIK addresses the refractive error. It doesn't touch the ciliary flexibility, the saccade speed, or the peripheral processing. These systems run on top of whatever refractive correction you have or don't have. If your LASIK result is starting to feel less clear than it did at 45, some portion of that change is the functional system's quietening. The drills address that portion. They don't restore the refractive result. They restore the functional layer underneath it. Send this to one person you know who keeps asking how their prescription keeps getting stronger every year. They don't need a stronger prescription. They need the 10-minute protocol Musashi wrote down 400 years ago. 2 gazes, 5 drills, 10 minutes a day. The eyes you had at 30 are still in there. They just forgot they were asked. The protocol remembers for them. Show up tomorrow morning and start the conversation. If this ancient wisdom combined with modern science has changed the way you look at your own potential, please subscribe and like this channel. We are dedicated to uncovering the hidden history and forgotten techniques that they tried to bury. Train your vision and you will sharpen your future. The next vault of knowledge will be unlocked soon. Stay focused.